The Kabbalion is probably the one to start with, written by the three initiates,
Mhm.
because that's going to be a great foundational overview of principles of Hermetic philosophy. Yeah, that's really going to be the one that you can spend a lot of time on, just reading. And really, as far as studying occult practice or occult literature, it's really about reading about reading about a concept or a thought or a way of thinking and just really sitting with that.
Thank you all for joining us here at the Casual Temple. Our guest today is Trista Dedmon, a designer, former astrologer, practicing mystic, and she currently owns Lucida Mystica, which is an occult wear shop that blends esotericism with everyday clothing. She also created and hosted the Liberate Yourself podcast, which ran for 31 episodes and focused on discussions around personal sovereignty and self-discovery during our current system breakdown. Thank you, Trista, for making the time, and welcome.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Yes, thank you. Um, you're my first also podcast host, so thank you for joining.
Yeah, that's being generous. I only did like a few episodes and I can't listen to them, but
Oh
yeah,
gosh,
happy
I
to be
know.
here. Thanks. I'll do my
I
best.
yeah, I hear that. I'm noticing all the ums that I do. So when I go back and listen, oh man.
When you go through editing, yeah, it's amazing. You have no idea
Oh yeah. But whatever. It's out there. It's
how
all
much
good.
we do that. Yep. Yep.
So I'm just gonna kind of just jump in to some questions that I have. So what I have is to kick us off is what is your earliest memory of a spiritual or paranormal experience or event?
Yeah, I don't know if it's like one event. I mean, what I can explain is just kind of my childhood, which we're around the same age. I grew up in the 80s in small town Texas. So very predominantly, whatever United States like Protestant Christian, form of Christianity we have here, like that was very much the mainstream. But I was always very, very curious about basically anything beyond the veil, anything metaphysical, because I could tell like this isn't, the whole picture. Like this
Hmm.
isn't everything that we can see and feel our senses. So it was really back then, not a lot of information, so it was more through books. Um, and so it, what I was reading mostly was, yeah, paranormal experiences, so like ghosts and things like that, just because it was something that was talking about the metaphysical and,
Hmm.
phenomena like that. So that's kind of where I was really focusing my attention and my energy. And other than that, I would say really, I mean, I was very, very blessed. I'm so grateful that I grew up. My family has land in Texas, so I was able to be out in nature a lot, just exploring.
Hmm.
And I would say that is probably how I connected to whatever you want to call it, source, the divine, the other side,
Yeah.
the metaphysical, the mystical. So that was essentially being out in nature and just really listening and absorbing
Hmm.
was probably, yeah, like I said, not necessarily an event, but that is where I, first remember feeling like, oh, there's something else, and there's so much to explore, and
Hmm.
so much mystery, I guess, uh, to look at. But it was always really confusing because no one around me was talking about it. Like none of the adults
Yep.
talked about it. It was all in the framework of religion, which also
Mm.
did not make sense to me, because it,
Hmm.
it just didn't account for so many things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, essentially, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that as well.
Oh, for sure. Especially
Feeling
in,
like, oh, there's something else.
yeah, this isn't, yeah, you're just like, I don't. especially when you're a kid, because you're
Wait a minute.
so open to everything and you're experiencing a lot of
Mhm.
stuff and you're thinking, and yeah, it just doesn't add up. And then you're having people explain to you, well, this is actually how the spiritual stuff works. And you're like, I don't know. It doesn't
Yeah.
jive. Yeah. Doesn't correlate for sure.
Right. Right. It doesn't
Um,
add up.
no, it doesn't. And so, and yeah, we definitely are about the same age and very similar experiences. For sure. I think you had more of the outdoor experience than I did. I always grew up in and around cities. Um, so I kind of identify more of a city person, but I totally get the
Yeah, but there were
outdoor.
books, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Books. And I was going to ask you if you ever read Communion by Whitley Strieber. And
No.
okay, you're lucky because like I read that at like age 10 and basically didn't sleep for 2 years because it was so horrifying.
I
Ah,
totally no, if as that was the funny thing. Like I would read about ghosts and scary things and then I wouldn't sleep and my dad
yep.
would be so mad because he's like, "Why do you keep reading this stuff?" I'm
Because
like,
it's
"But it's
so
so good."
cool.
I
And
know.
yeah, and it's freaking me out. So I don't know. I might like that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Um, so what would you say as far as now you're an adult, like what path have you taken now that you can, really choose and not have to be beholden to like what your family expects or your community?
Yeah. Right. I mean, that's a yeah, it's a long and winding path, right?
Hmm.
Coming back to it. Currently, yeah, I would say, and I don't adhere to any, that's my advice for anybody. I don't adhere
Hmm.
to any one way of thought or lock myself into any other kind of dogma or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it would basically be, yeah, just like natural mysticism, definitely a foundation in Hermeticism and personal alchemy. And because that feels like, and occult teachings, and by
Hmm.
occult, all I mean by that, because it is a very confusing word and encompasses a
Yes.
lot of things, or can
Yeah.
encompass a lot of things, and is very misunderstood. But literally, it just means hidden. That's really the neutral uh, meaning of it.
Hmm.
Um, and the way that I see occult teachings is, yeah, basically what many mystics it's this lineage of mystics throughout history that have practiced. A lot of times it comes down to Hermeticism because that is it originates with this sage character Hermes Trismegistus in the Emerald Tablet, um, that that lays out 7 key principles for essentially I would say like how reality works. Like that's what it feels like to me.
Hmm.
And coming across this material felt like um, it felt like more of a remembering or like coming across something. One of my friend of mine summed it up pretty well. Like, it's almost like coming across the never-ending story, and you're like, what? Like, it is real. Like, there's
Yeah.
this whole world that is hidden
Hmm.
essentially. And what I feel and believe is that come to we find that in this, our incarnation, if it's something that we've either done in the past or if it's, kind of pulling us into practice, study and practice these teachings. Because really, essentially, it's about knowing the divine and knowing that we are all part of the divine. And the
Hmm.
practices and elemental principles, and that's where nature comes in, like the base elemental principles of reality and how those operate and how everything corresponds with everything else. I mean, essentially, it's the all one concept,
Yeah.
and how we can take a more direct path in this lifetime of realizing that, or evolving, or becoming more self-aware and knowing that we are part of that, not separate. Like, like mainstream society would have us believe, or materialism would have us believe that we're, all separate from everything. So
Hmm.
that's that I would say, like, in very simple terms, that's the basis of my practice these days. And again, I did, study, and I still do study occult literature, um, and practice very regularly. But again, I don't adhere to just one way of thinking, but I keep coming back to those principles,
Hmm.
because they're really embedded in the origins of a lot of mystical teachings, and seem to be, what's the word? They seem to not be like corrupted, or
Mm.
they're perennial, it's perennial wisdom that has been the same throughout time, that, authors have and alchemists have written about the same things, encoded a lot of times, because these things had to be hidden,
Yeah.
in the past. But definitely these times they're coming back into light, which is really, really exciting.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that's what I would say. Did I answer your question?
Yes, I would say you answered my question and also gave a nice brief history on the occult. So, wow, it was really good. Um, I did want to touch on it because you brought up the word occult, and it is like
Mm-hmm.
to like you or maybe it's not a scary word. Because I even remember
Yeah.
saying to a family member, I was like, oh yeah, I consider myself an occultist. I consider myself a practitioner of, those arts. And then they were like, ooh,
Hmm.
made a face and,
Yeah.
got a little, and I was like, oh,
Right.
but I understood it, right? Like I wasn't going to judge it. I was just like, oh, I get it. When you see the surface level of the occult, it looks kind of scary. Um, but then
Right. Because it has been demonized, like,
oh, for
literally.
sure.
I mean, think of, especially through, like, during the 80s and 90s, the satanic panic phenomena, like occult was, and that's why I said occult is a neutral word, like it literally just means hidden. So
Hmm.
yeah, it does include Hermeticism. It does include, the more uh, benefic practices, but it also includes black magic. Just like the
Hmm.
word magic is neutral. There's black magic. There's good. Like it does encompass, but it seems that, yeah, in mainstream society it has been demonized. And also, just because I have an occult clothing shop, which I'm sure we'll talk about,
Oh
and
yeah.
in doing my research, when I look for, like, oh, occult clothing, just to kind of like market research, a lot of times it's associated with, like, Satanism, and more demonic kinds of
Hmm.
themes. I'm like, oh, like, I forget. I'm like, oh man. But that's what's really cool, is the people that do are looking for, like, more sacred, mysticism kind of occult
Yeah.
designs and things like that, or like, oh, whoa, here it is. But
Yeah.
it is interesting. It can be a very confusing word.
Hmm. Yes, I agree. Um, but thank you. That yeah, again, like very good and articulate explanation of that. In those moments, I'm always like, oh, maybe I'll have a deeper conversation with this person, but kind of move it
Yeah.
along.
Hmm.
So thanks for going over your path to date. I know when we had chatted previously, you had talked about like reawakening processes as how I understood
Yeah.
it. And definitely I would say it goes
Hmm.
into how you explained your spiritual path so far, but how have you experienced
Hmm.
reawakening?
Yeah. Who? Much time you got? I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
well.
Um, I will try to briefly touch on the things I feel are really important, because, and I think that's also what I was trying to do with my podcast, is have the kinds of conversations so that people would understand they're not alone, because
Mm,
most of the time you are going to feel alone, especially in those first phases of awakening, or kind of remembering or reawakening. I know I was. It happened because like I said, I was into all of this when I was a child, especially as a teenager. Started to get into astrology and tarot and all the things. And something happened in my 20s. where, and I mean, just from my background, there was like some trauma, and I didn't have a whole lot of like parental support, or, I kind of had
Mm-hmm.
to make it on my own. So I did sort of put it away in a way. It's not like I didn't believe, but it's just I was trying to focus on practical material matters, like i.e. like how do I make it in the world?
Yeah.
And I just kind of felt like I needed to, really focus on, I'm a Capricorn moon, so I was just like, how do I make money and like make my way in the world and stuff. So anyway, around, I think I was 34. I don't know, I just started thinking about it again, like even from a sort of mundane perspective, like, oh, like I feel a certain way. What's going on astrologically with the
Mm.
energy? Just kind of thinking about those correlations and correspondences again, and bringing back in like some candle magic work or whatever, just for prosperity. I remember I did a candle magic, just really basic for prosperity, and everything. I mean, a day or two later, everything that was kind of teetering, like I was in a relationship that I really needed to leave and it just wasn't happening, and everything that was teetering on the edge just kind of clipped and was like, okay, here we go. um Left the relationship deteriorated, was really uncertain like where I was going to live, and I was in Texas at the time. I had lived in Seattle in my 20s and kind of jumped around to live in a few different places, but eventually made it back to Texas. But just through a series of events, moved back to Seattle, and was, living sort of with a friend or group of friends in their like basement unit of this house. And I won't go into detail, but there were some decision, and I really feel like this was, whatever you want to call it, the universe or what have you. It was like pulling me into like reckoning situations, like
Mm.
really almost like plutonic transformative situations. And I do have that signature in my chart where, if you like, transforming is just, you go through a really deep dive into like basically just everything gone, like losing everything, being
Mm.
ending up in that place where you're all alone. Like it's just like these really tough, a really tough spot. So I found myself like in this basement apartment, super alone, very just at the end of, like, I did not know what to do essentially. And it was the kind of environment that I feel the occult will find you again, or it will come, because those resources and those feelings and through synchronicities and everything, that it was coming back into my life. And I really feel like that is how we communicate, or at least I do, but I feel like, it can be a different perspective for different people, but I
Mhm.
just literally like have this relationship and communicate, let the universe communicate with me. And it's sort of this dialogue. I don't like to personify it. I know a lot of people
Mm.
like, oh, it's my guides, it's angels or whatever. I really don't. I always shy away from that. Maybe because I feel like that's sort of our human nature to want to personify something
Mm. Mhm.
and interact with it that way. But um so I still don't even have a word for it, is my point. But reality was communicating with me. I started reading more, started learning more, getting back into astrology, really getting into Hermeticism and alchemy, especially because I was in that, the first operation or stage of alchemy is calcination, the
Mhm.
blackening, when everything is just taken away and burned to ashes. And I was like, well, that's where I am,
Ugh.
essentially. So it made sense that especially personal alchemy would come back into my life because I was literally doing that work already.
Mhm.
So yeah, and then really what like synchronicities were just everywhere, so obvious to me. And maybe it's a Pisces thing too. I'm a Pisces sun and Mercury natally, and I think that because I mean you are too a Pisces sun, and I feel like we have this relationship with reality where whatever is beyond the veil, whatever is unseen, the metaphysical is more real, or there's
Hmm.
less of a distinction between the two. And
Yep.
so that is, yeah, still how I communicate with reality. And it was just coming in at that point. So I guess I guess that's enough of an explanation. I went from there, it just started giving me more of a I was starting to feel more empowered and like
Mm.
starting to build myself back up and literally learning a new language. I mean, the transits that were going on for me at that time really pointed to I was going through like a 12th house transit. Jupiter was moving through my 12th house. So it was literally like being removed from society, being, you know, very introverted, very in the web um, of reality and not so much like in material reality.
Hmm.
And also, yeah, Saturn was moving through my third house. So there was just this like almost elementary style, like learning language around how to communicate these metaphysical concepts and these esoteric concepts, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm really grateful for that time because it, you know, definitely brought me to where I am now. And yeah, I just want anyone to know if they're going through that and they feel alone, that's part of it
Yeah.
and it's not forever. And yeah, literally just you don't have to reach out, but yes, it does help to. I think nowadays, my God, we have podcasts, and that's what helped me too.
Yeah.
Having podcasts like this, where you're just listening to people have these conversations, it's like, oh, okay, I'm not the only one, you
Oh
know, because
yeah.
that can be like really, really detrimental and really tough to go through. So,
Hmm.
and part of the reason I started my podcast too.
Yeah.
But yeah, fun times.
Oh man. Yeah.
Um,
There's a lot of visuals that you put in there. And yeah, I can sense like that sort of isolation, but you're right. It's definitely part of the process. And part of the process is that reaching out
hermetically
too.
sealed, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
in the
I
thing.
understood like yeah, exactly. And that's a really, really important process. Yeah, so that
Hmm.
and now I know, I mean, looking back, the friends that because I lost friends during that time,
Hmm.
and I can see that if that had not happened, like they were not in the same energy that I needed at the time,
Right.
in order to really know myself as well as what being isolated was doing for me. I'm pretty isolated anyway. I always have been like super introverted and I'm
Hmm.
coming around, you know, I'm 41 now and I'm like, you know, that's just who I am. And it's coming through with other systems too, with human design, astrology. It's
Oh,
like I
yeah.
just it doesn't I don't know. So anyways,
Yeah.
it is a really important time to be able to focus on like I said, the personal alchemy of rebuild tearing down everything you thought you knew and rebuilding it from the ground up like that just takes extreme inner focus
Oh, yeah,
to be
for
able to do
sure.
that.
Yeah, I would say there's like, wow, there's like a couple of things that you said that ignited my brain. But the thing around kind of understand, well, for me, understanding my own energy and understanding I
Mm-hmm.
literally have a limited amount of energy, especially to spend around other people. And
Yep.
so, and now I'm becoming very familiar. I've been using my calendar a lot because I literally have to schedule like blocks of time. And I'm like, I have
Yeah.
time for you 2 weeks from now, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Totally.
yeah, and it's not anything around like not caring for the person or anything or other people. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
I've just understood I am a better person if I manage my own energy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Um
Absolutely.
and
It's nothing personal.
yeah, it's not
It would
personal
be
at all.
anybody that I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um And the other thing you said was interesting is I have a friend that she also doesn't personify the energies that she interacts with. She sees
Mm.
like abstract shapes and curves and maybe like lights and stuff. And I'm like, wow, that is fascinating. To me,
Yeah,
they like all this stuff comes in a very personified form. That's just how that
that's
it
great. I've
interacts
always
with.
been like envious of that actually. I'm like, wow, you have a name to I it just yeah, it doesn't always happen. But
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah. So it's, I guess at least my this other person I know, she's like has the same thing. Um, well, cool. So you definitely, you had this sort of solitary thing and you're kind of researching and thinking and like reconnecting with
Hmm.
occult practices. Did you have any teachers, whether they be like teachers you were personally looking at or,
Hmm.
through books or whatever that you were connecting with?
Yeah, it's like it's kind of always been a bane of my existence. I've always, always, always wanted an in-person mentor. I think a lot
Mm,
of us have. Like we just it's something that doesn't happen as often.
yeah.
But so the answer is no to in person, but I came across the people that I came across that were I consider them to be my teachers. Well, the main one would be his name's Neil Kramer, and
Mm,
he's English originally, but he lives on the peninsula, which is close to us in Washington,
yeah.
the Olympic Peninsula. And he's basically an esotericist, a philosopher, and draws together many different forms of mysticism. He's a teacher, literally a teacher. He's a Virgo, and he literally gives workshops and does, podcasts and things like that. And he was a saving grace for me because he was, just when you find someone that's able to articulate what you're feeling. So that's why I love Virgo. It's like the other side of the spectrum that fills that in for me. They're able to like articulate
Yeah.
things in a way that my little Pisces, brain just can't find words for.
Yeah.
But he was a huge, and still is a huge teacher in my on my path. Definitely a hermeticist and even esoteric. He started coming out recently as um, an esoteric. He actually researches and studies and does what's called exegesis, which is like reading scripture and understanding scripture from a first person point of view instead of taking any other translation.
Mm,
Um, but for esoteric Christianity, so what Christianity was before religion, essentially,
yeah.
which is really mind blowing, really incredible to kind of go back that far. Like basically the going from the Nag Hammadi texts, which are ancient texts that talk about, explain like Christ consciousness and yeah, anyway, he's a wealth of knowledge. I would highly recommend him. It's just like neilkramer.com is his website. But he's also been like on
Mm,
um Gaia Network interviews quite a lot. And there was also a documentary, really beautiful documentary that he made. I don't remember the director's name, but I think it's just called Transmutation.
mm,
And you can just go and like stream that. Beautiful, beautiful documentary just on all mystical lifestyle practice, how multiple people came into it and practice it. And yeah, but I would say he's the main one for sure that I remember right now.
oh, well, yeah, I had to make a note of Neil Kramer because that was a very good endorsement of him as a teacher. Uh,
Yeah, and more, I mean, he's very like embodies, I feel like the divine masculine, and that's
mm,
a voice that really speaks to me.
yeah.
We had kind of shared that before when we were chatting that what really resonates with me a lot of times is more of like the mental masculine approach to these things.
Hmm.
I'm definitely working on, and I know it's part of my life's work to get more into the heart, get more into the compassion, get more into my feminine, which I definitely have done through my occult practice. But a lot of times the information that resonates with me the most is through that kind of masculine energy. So I just wanted to say, like, he definitely embodies that for me. Like, he
Mm,
could probably be too hard, like too harsh for some people, because he's just like, no, this is, the thing.
right.
So it's just that caveat.
Yeah, I'm kind of used to that, especially in these sort of these hermetic practices, and you get into the cult, there's a lot of masculine energy there. And there's definitely a lot of like really fascinating books and authors who tend to be male, but very much like this is it or whatever. And I'm like,
Mm,
I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta balance it out. I know. I
Yeah.
got to a point where when I was studying magic, where it was just like, okay, I need to get away from the like very yang, like, okay, let's get the thing or manifest the thing.
Yep.
And I had to soften it out and balance. There's always a balance,
Yeah.
balance is everything.
Hmm.
Yeah, I just wanted to give that because you can definitely, I think a lot of people can go very far into the like super feminine woo and everything,
Mm.
but not have that, because what the masculine helps do is create order,
Yeah.
create and our mind needs that, like our we need that, I feel, to like truly understand something. Otherwise you're just like floating, and
Hmm.
things don't get grounded, um grounded in your understanding of
Yeah.
them. But yeah, just one without the other. I mean, that's the whole thing. If I had to break down reality, Hermeticism, the occult, the
Hmm.
whole thing is about balance and masculine, feminine, yin,
Yeah.
yang, black, white, good, bad, the balancing of polarity.
Hmm. Yeah, I think even on my website, because I explain like a little one sentence about like I consider myself a Kabbalist. And so I was like,
Hmm.
Hermeticism is the balancing of masculine and feminine. Like if you boil it all down, that's like how to explain it to somebody,
Beautiful.
but like of
Totally.
course you get into it and it's just like, there's a lot,
Yeah.
but oh man. Um,
Yeah.
and so I know also when we were chatting, you were telling me about this term that I think you had said some friends that called you the Galactic Empress, which sounds like super cool. Like that's a cool thing. But I loved your explanation
Yeah.
about that. So, and what it meant to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a magic spell. It's I actually was doing, this was after coming out of that really kind of dark alone time. I knew that I needed to cultivate like the ground beneath me, essentially. I was still like not sure about what I was going to do with my life or how to support myself, like all these things. And I knew I needed to incorporate the element of earth, which is, abundance, resources, stability, security, all those things. And I came across Benebell Wen, who is, I would say, like, she's a really interesting author. She's like by day a corporate attorney, I believe, but she just writes prolifically about occult practice. And she has this book called, oh gosh, I think it's called the Holistic Tarot. It's like this
Mm,
big. It's just a huge, um, perfect tarot book. But she had a course about shadow work and working with the tarot and choosing elements to cultivate. So and so you choose, a tarot card that embodies that element for what you're looking for, and do these practices daily for a year or more. And I was working with the Empress for a long time. Still consider, myself to be working with the Empress. And I looked around, I looked around at my surroundings not long ago when I was, because a friend of mine, very magical friend of mine, we were doing, kind of work together, and she kind of gave me that name of Galactic Empress, just because it's like, yeah, Empress on the earth, but also, as an astrologer and just thinking about the entire cosmos. And I don't know, it was kind of like for
hmm.
fun, but
Yeah.
just calling myself that online is sort of the spell.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I was looking around at my surroundings where I live now, I'm like, I am the empress, my version of the empress. I'm surrounded by evergreen trees. I'm in an apartment on property that has this beautiful garden.
Wow.
And that just, yeah, just all these things. I was like wearing the clothing that I used to envision, but you don't really think about it consciously when
Yeah.
you just like, oh, I want it, because it was something about like wearing green. Like green was the color.
Mm-hmm.
And I wear all black. I have for years.
Yep.
Um, but I started incorporating green just out of the blue. So I was like wearing this like green empress dress and looking around. I was like, I am the empress. Oh my God, because this happens. That's how manifestation happens. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's not instant, but you just look around a year or two later, and you're like, oh, this is everything I was envisioning when I was doing that spell or that magical working or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what that's about. It's kind of silly, but it's just a spell.
Oh, well, I think it sounds really cool.
Internet spell.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I have those internet spells. Uh
Hmm.
um let's see. I feel like there was something
And
I was
that
gonna.
was also, sorry,
Yeah, yeah.
that was also me working with the feminine. I just
Oh,
want to
right.
articulate that. That was
Mm-hmm.
part of me because the Empress is like the embodiment of
Oh
feminine
yeah.
energy. She's pregnant, she has everything she needs. It's creativity, like, and it
Mm-hmm.
just flows from her,
Yeah.
It's that really raw um essence of abundance,
Mm-hmm.
and like I have everything I need and it comes from within me. I just grow it, And then the Emperor is the masculine side of that builds the walls around, like that creates the order for that to flourish essentially and be safe. So I just wanted to
Mm-hmm.
highlight that.
Oh yeah, definitely. She's a car. Yeah, because I'm also, we chatted about this, but like I'm also have very masculine energy. And I'm also very much working on my own divine feminine. And definitely the Empress card is one that you kind of look to for all the reasons that you said. And also another thing too is just becoming comfortable with my body and my surroundings and making sure that, like I have a beautiful home, the things around me I love and the people I love, and just and being
Hmm.
comfortable and not so like not comfortable and
Yeah.
stressed out about it. So she's
Yeah.
great.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um, let's see. I think we kind of covered some of the questions here about Hermeticism because you already explained it so wonderfully. Let's see.
Oh, thank you.
Oh yeah, I know you, you did a great job. uh so I see here about like the term occult mysticism, which I know you were sort of, or you kind of already explained, but how do you incorporate both? Because in my experience, it seems to be
Hmm.
separate, except a few authors have blended the two. Meaning, like I think Aleister Crowley is definitely a cult mystic, and then
Hmm.
maybe Dion Fortune, definitely an occult mystic.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but I'm just curious what
So
your
many.
thoughts on that are.
I feel like occult is the umbrella for
Mm,
all mystical, um, metaphysical practice, anything that is hidden.
mm,
And then Hermeticism, yeah, it gets tied in there, but Hermeticism, I know, because Crowley is Crowley,
yeah.
uh, order. I think he had one interpretation. It's essentially, and like everything. I feel like the practitioners actually have their own interpretations, so I
Mm,
don't think there's. I would, in my view, I wouldn't see it as separate.
mm,
Just that occult is a very like overarching term for many different um, practices or disciplines,
mm.
I guess, within mysticism. That's how I see it,
Okay,
anyway.
cool. Thank you. Also, a great explanation on that. Um,
Thank you.
uh, I would say, are there any? I know you've already recommended some really great books to look at, including
Mm.
Neil Kramer and then Benebell Wen. Are there any
Hmm.
additional people that you have looked at that would be quote unquote
Yeah.
occult occult author?
Yeah, of course.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. The Kabbalion is probably the one to start with, written by the three initiates,
Mhm.
because that's going to be a great foundational overview of the principles of Hermetic philosophy. Um, yeah, that's really going to be the one that you can spend a lot of time on, just reading. And really, as far as studying occult practice, I don't know about you or occult literature, it's really about reading about so like reading about a concept or a thought or um, a way of thinking, and just really sitting with that, and even setting an intention. It's not to be like read all the way through because you're not really going to absorb it. It's really about
Mhm.
absorbing the the material.
Mhm.
So it's really about reading one, essentially like one principle, and just being open and seeing how that plays out in different parts of reality. And the way that I work with, again, the universe, reality, whatever you want to call it, is, I remain open. I'm like, okay, show me what this is about, and make it a game, either
Mhm.
through synchronicity or information will come in, TV shows, or, whatever, all these mundane things. Like, show me this principle out in the wild. And that'll happen, um, if you're really earnest and genuine with it.
Mhm.
So yeah, the Kybalion is definitely a text I would say to begin with, and just really take your time learning the principles. And then some other ones, another author, John Michael Greer, is amazing. He's extremely prolific. I think, do you know who
Oh
you know
yeah.
who he is, right? I don't
Yeah.
think. Yeah, yeah. Extremely prolific. I'm actually doing his, oh, I want to say it's called Workbook of Occult Philosophy. So it's essentially so good, so good. If you're ready to really do a daily practice for a year, you go through, there's different lessons. It's literally just building on itself, and through that practice that I just talked about, letting it absorb. And there's a lesson for each week of the year, including uh, the equinoxes and the solstices, which are like the gateways in the occult calendar. And so every morning, whether you're at your altar, wherever you go into a meditative state, you read one paragraph, and then you do discursive meditation, which is thinking. Like,
Mhm.
literally, meditation, if you think about the term premeditated, it means thinking, in the Western esoteric tradition anyway. So it's like reading a paragraph and then just pondering and considering it. I would say that is the majority of occult practice, and even magic. It's not so much because I'm not very ceremonial, I'm not very ritualistic. I mean, yeah, I have an altar, but I'm not that type of magician. It's really like we said, mental for me.
Mhm. Mhm.
And most of the time, you're really just considering things, really just letting things sort of absorb and lay themselves into you, because that's how it works. It's not always through cognition. It's not always through the conscious mind. In fact, I would argue that's very small part of it, right? Like
Mhm.
10%, if anything. Your dreams, it can absorb that way. I've been when I was taking Benebell Wen's tarot class or whatever, I would have dreams about this certain, you know, operation that she taught. I was like, oh, okay, like
Wow.
I know something got in there. I don't know what it was, but like something laid itself into me. So that's another book or author. I mean, he writes lots of great things, and he's
Mm.
on a lot of podcasts as well,
Yes.
John Michael. So he's great to listen to. And ooh, yeah, of course.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. The Kabbalion is probably the one to start with, written by the three initiates,
Mhm.
because that's going to be a great foundational overview of the principles of Hermetic philosophy. Um, yeah, that's really going to be the one that you can spend a lot of time on, just reading, and really as far as studying occult practice, I don't know about you or occult literature. It's really about reading about so like reading about a concept or a thought or um, a way of thinking and just really sitting with that and even setting an intention. It's not to be like read all the way through because you're not really going to absorb it. It's really about
Mm.
absorbing the the material.
Hmm.
So it's really about, reading one essentially like one principle and just being open and seeing how that plays out in different parts of reality. And the way that I work with, again, the universe, reality, whatever we want to call it, is, I remain open. I'm like, okay, show me what this is about and make it a game, either
Hmm.
through synchronicity or information will come in, TV shows, or, whatever, all these mundane things, like show me this principle out in the wild. And that'll happen, if you're really um, if you're really earnest and genuine with it.
Hmm.
So yeah, the Kybalion is definitely a text I would say to begin with and just really take your time learning the principles. And then some other ones, another author, John Michael Greer, is amazing. He's extremely prolific. I think, do you know
Oh,
you know
yeah.
who he is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Extremely prolific. I'm actually doing his, I want to say it's called Workbook of Occult Philosophy. So it's essentially so good, so good. If you're ready to really do a daily practice for a year, you go through, there's different lessons. It's literally just building on itself, and through that practice that I just talked about, letting it absorb. And there's a lesson for each week of the year, including uh, the equinoxes and the solstices, which are like the gateways in the occult calendar. And so every morning, whether you're at your altar or wherever you go into a meditative state, you read one paragraph, and then you do discursive meditation, which is thinking. Like literally meditation, if you think about the term premeditated, it means thinking. In the Western esoteric tradition, anyway. So it's like reading a paragraph and then just pondering and considering it. I would say that is the majority of occult practice and even magic. It's not so much because I'm not very ceremonial, I'm not very ritualistic. I mean, yeah, I have an altar, but I'm not that type of magician. It's really like we said, mental for me.
Hmm. Hmm.
And most of the time, you're really just considering things, really just letting things sort of absorb and lay themselves into you, because that's how it works. It's not always through cognition, it's not always through the conscious mind. In fact, I would argue that's very small part of it, right? Like
Hmm.
10%, if anything. Your dreams, it can absorb that way. I've been when I was taking Benebell Wen's tarot class or whatever, I would have dreams about this certain, you know, operation that she taught. I was like, oh, okay, like
Wow.
I know something got in there. I don't know what it was, but like something laid itself into me. Um, so that's another book or author. I mean, he writes lots of great things, and he's
Mm.
on a lot of podcasts as well,
Yes.
John Michael. So he's great to listen to, and whew, wealth of knowledge.
Oh my God, that man's brain, I do not know how it operates. Like it is
I don't know. He's like a living computer. Like
yes.
he's just insane.
Wow,
But really
cool.
good. His other book that's really great to have is just The Occult, and it's
Mm.
literally do you have it?
Yeah, I have that
It's
one.
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just like art and like all these little historical snippets of occult through the ages. Such a good one to have too.
Cool.
Um, trying to think of, and I would actually say if anyone, because this helped me out a lot, I found the Theosophical Society in Seattle. I don't know if you have too, at Quest Bookshop in Capitol Hill, if you're
Hmm.
there. They have there's a Theosophical library, like in
Mm.
the back of the bookstore that you kind of have to know about.
Cool.
Um, if you go in there, I mean, basically the Theosophical Society encompasses like Rudolf Steiner's teachings, um, Alice Bailey as well, and basically it's like it's not one religion. They're studying many different spiritual teachings and avenues, basically, but it's all pointed at like, how do we understand the divine, how do we understand our spiritual beingness as humans. So that's
Wow.
another, if there's a Theosophical Society around, that's a great resource, especially if they have a library, because you're just going to have access to so many sacred texts and so many authors and books. My favorite being Steiner, which I um, still am reading and learning about anthroposophy and diving deep into his uh, his view on things. He had just an incredible understanding of the metaphysical and you know, and anthroposophy as well. So I would definitely hope I'm not saying too much, but
I wouldn't worry about it. I'll say it more than you, so it's okay.
I would but I would definitely recommend that for anyone who's seeking, you know, who is a seeker, for sure.
Well, since you mentioned two things, and I'm going to connect them. I think you already know the connection, but you had mentioned the Theosophical Society. We also mentioned very early on the Never-Ending Story, and I know I'm pretty sure you probably know how they're connected. Is the author of the story Never-Ending Story was a theosophist, and so that's why.
Did I know that? Maybe. I
Well,
forgot if I did. Wow.
well, you rediscovered it again.
Thank you for, yeah, that's
Yeah,
so funny. That
yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
Because especially I feel like a certain, our age group. I know that there's like the youngins
Yeah.
of today that have also seen the
Yeah.
Never-Ending Story, but I'm like, man, when you see that at like 5 years old, that imprints.
You didn't even know, like we didn't even, yeah. Because all we had was movies and
Yeah.
books. That's it.
Exactly. That's all
It's
we
hard to
had.
explain pre-internet.
I know. They're like, what? I'm like, you don't even understand. There's effort involved in all of this stuff. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that because like that movie, oh, so good. And then I know you mentioned Benebell Wen for sure, and I had never heard of her. I feel like I probably had seen some folks talk about her tarot, but for whatever reason I didn't look into it. So I looked into her tarot and I was like, oh wow, cool. She basically she did a combination of the Rider-Waite-Smith and then sort of the Tout or Thoth deck by Aleister Crowley was sort of like her jumping off point. And so I was looking through and I was like, oh yeah, I can see what she was doing there, kind of inviting those like weird ass Aleister Crowley kind of the visuals that are in that deck, but also the very symbolic stuff that is very I don't want to say obvious, but it's very in your face on the Rider-Waite-Smith.
Traditional.
Yeah, very traditional. So yeah, I was like, wow, again, like another great recommendation to check out.
For sure. Her knowledge goes deep as well. Like you could spend forever on, and she doesn't like to profit from it, which is interesting. Wow. She gives away a lot of things for free or super cheap, like her courses and things like that. So
cool.
Great resource.
Yeah. And so it's funny that you said, I didn't realize that she was also an attorney. But somebody that I look at, because we're going to chat a little bit about astrology next, but somebody that I've been looking at a lot lately is Christopher Warnock, and he's also an attorney, but a magician, also an astrological magician. And so I was thinking about him because he does have like such a great grasp, because he's an attorney, like he can explain things in very simple terms that are like understandable. So I'm thinking, I'm like, what are all these attorneys that are magicians like doing magical
they can
stuff?
dive into very arcane knowledge. if I had to describe the law, like think about tax law, like what the, it's like arcane and so hard to understand. Like that's
Yeah.
literally why we need attorneys for the most part, because I mean, a lot of what they're doing is reading and understanding information and then using that in some way. So I think maybe that's probably a connector. Like they're just able to understand large breadths of knowledge and material and can, you know, communicate that or
Hmm.
utilize that, you
Wow.
know.
That
That's
makes a lot of
interesting.
sense. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Ugh, again,
Yeah.
another sort of brain that is like a computer. Very cool.
Yeah.
Um, so I know when we had chatted about astrology, you had mentioned that uh,
Hmm.
you were interested in more of the Hellenistic astrology. Um, I consider myself like I know a little bit more than the average person about astrology. So I definitely don't know what Hellenistic
Yeah.
astrology is. If you are able
Yeah,
to
no worries.
explain it.
Yeah, I mean, I am not a historian. Like, don't quote, the dates and facts or whatever. But Hellenistic is uh, astrology is it's also called traditional astrology. So now that we've talked about all of the Hermeticism and occult, its origins are actually it's said from you know from Hermes Trismegistus or from Hermeticism and these practices, which is part of why like it links in with that really beautifully. Like for me, like it makes sense.
Mhm.
But it was practiced at during the Hellenistic era around Greece and Egypt. So it's these ancient practices, a way of understanding astrology and utilizing it basically because it used to be a really practical thing. Like this is back, in those civilizations, this is just something that was taken as, it's like the weather or it's just what you do. And that was lost for a long time, mainly because a lot of the texts were not translated
Mm.
into English. So it wasn't brought. Okay, so again, timelines are not my strong suit, but
Mm.
somehow it was lost. It was not brought into the West, mainly because the texts weren't being translated so the English speakers could, understand or even know about these techniques. So what happened with what we know of as more modern psychological astrology, that started to have a come up in the last, the 20th century alongside psychology as well. So with Jung and with Carl Jung's practices and everything else, who he was also would be considered an astrologer. He studied astrology along with everything else
Mhm.
he did. But so while that was happening in the West, like 60s, 70s, 80s especially, it was getting astrology was getting conflated with psychology and being seen more as a personality examination or a way of explaining the personality of the person or of the
Mm.
native. And then, as far as I understand, there was a group of astrologers that somehow the translations of those ancient texts started to happen, and so they were. I don't know if they were actually. It was called Project Hindsight. Was um, this group of astrologers that started translating and bringing that material back to the West, essentially. And it was like, oh, there's this entire. It was basically like getting this inheritance that we didn't know we had
Mm.
of how to practice astrology, which is more not so much about the personality of the native. It does do that, but instead just shows and along with the techniques just shows the basically represents the life of the native or whatever it may be. I mean, the native can be a person, it can be a country, it can be an event. And so there's different techniques that were employed with traditional astrology that are now known as far as timing, electional astrology, and also it's different from modern in that it really focuses on the 7 traditional planets, not the outer planets, as rulers of the signs, and different techniques that can say kind of illustrate a person's chart more, like knowing the planet that rules the entire chart, which is the planet that rules the ascendant sign, and terms like the sect, which is SECT, like if you have a day chart or a night chart, if you were born during the day, the sun is the sect leader, and Jupiter and Saturn have more of an effect or influence on your life. And if you're born at night, the moon is actually more is like the leader of the sect, or more what you're um, sort of embodying. And then Venus and Mars are the ones that you can lean into more, that influence the chart in more of a beneficial way or stronger way. So there's a lot. There's many different techniques like that that were basically since the 80s and 90s have been coming back into have been introduced to the West and being incorporated again with astrology. So I hope that was comprehensive.
Yeah, that was very good. Thank you. Oh man. Yeah, it's not easy kind of distilling these things down. So I'm so happy that you were you were doing that. So that's very great. How would you say that you use astrology in your practice or in your day, or like how do you use it for yourself?
For myself? Yeah, because I was practicing for a while and giving readings, and I just realized this isn't what I mean, people were happy and everything, but I'm like, this isn't what I'm good at, because I didn't like getting into the weeds with. That's a whole other, a whole other conversation about the ethics around doing readings, etc., which I think should be regulated, much like therapy. But the way that I use it, I would say it's really about timing, looking at transits, which is the current planets and how they're moving in relation to your natal chart, can just tell so much about what phase of life you're in, what things that you're being asked to focus on. And again, going back to that communicating with the universe, it's my way of it's one of the layers of data, essentially, for communicating how the energy is working inside me. What because that's the whole thing. I don't believe that it's not a causal relationship. It's not the planets are doing something to me. It's not that. It's literally a cosmic clock is what I call it. It's like the weather. It's like a just kind of checking to see, okay, what time is it? Oh, it's Saturn time in this house at this part of my life. So I'm gonna. I think it really helps you to have context. Like, really, that's what it boils down to. I'm like, I don't know how people function without it, because it really is like not knowing the weather and then you go out without a raincoat when it's raining or something like that. It just helps you be able to structure your life and not resist things that are happening, because it does matter, like what house a planet is transiting, and the houses are a part of your life, essentially, where you're going to see those influences. So that's how I use it going forward. Like just as an example, right now it's always good to see where Saturn is transiting for 2.5 years, what part of your chart. So right now it's transiting my 6th house and going, at some point going to conjunct my sun and my Mercury. And 6th house is about, it's pretty banal, it's pretty mundane, but it's like the daily life. It's your routines, it's your physical health, and the routines, how the routines play into your physical health, and the work that you do, like daily tasky stuff, like boring stuff. But and so I knew Saturn was, has been moving through that part of my house, and I've had to really pay attention to, because I work from home, I work at a desk a lot. I also do art, so it's like I have developed certain health, things with my body that are telling me like, hey, you need to pay attention to your posture, how
Yeah.
you're using your body. You need to do these different, like it made me drop doing yoga because I was having certain pains and like take up the like qigong instead, like all these
Mm.
different like and they're daily practices. So anyway, not to get too into the weeds, but it's I think that a lot can be you can that's kind of a cheat code, is see where, especially Saturn, just because it's so it governs, the physical time
Hmm.
boundaries, things like that. It's the easiest to see, you
Yeah.
know. But knowing that, it makes me not freak out like, oh, what, like I'm having chronic issues or whatever. It's like, no, just you're being asked to have daily discipline
Mm.
in order to evolve and grow. And so just, look in different places or change up what you're doing rather than really resisting it and not
Right.
knowing what's happening. So that's why I say I don't know how people function without astrology, because it's like it gives context
You're
to a
right.
life.
Hmm.
So that's the main reason, the main way that I use it,
Yeah.
for
That's
sure. And of course the fun of just seeing current events play out. It's like, oh yeah, that's
all that. Yeah. It's in there. Yeah.
yep.
Uh, um, I liked how you explained it, sort of like astrology is like the weather, and also articulating, because Christopher Warnock talks about this too, that the planets aren't doing this to you. It's not like they're sending these rays down and like messing up your life or
Yeah.
making your life better or whatever. It's not necessarily how it works. So I think your examples were really um perfect in explaining that. But I will say, like in my sort of in my practice, astrology, like I didn't want to explore astrology initially because I was like, that's a lot of math and a lot of like
Yeah.
degrees and a lot of like, I'm like, my brain cannot handle. However, as I go along, it's becoming way more prominent. And the way I look at least your initial, like your birth chart, at least for me, when I look at it, it helps explain, and like you said, give context to like why am I like this, or like why am
Yeah.
I like
Validation too, right?
validation, like okay, yes, like this explains this, why I do this all the time, and it's something I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to um in that work. It's like the alchemy or whatever. It's a good map
Mm-hmm.
to go in and say, here's
Mm-hmm.
where you need to alchemize this situation. So that's kind of what I use astrology, at least for my own work.
Yeah.
um
Yeah, that's a great explanation. I would also add, because I
mm,
I have noticed like a trap that can happen.
mm-hmm.
Don't th And this can happen, I feel a lot with modern astrology too. Don't think that you are, it's hard to describe, but the chart is showing a snapshot of when you were born, the energies of when you were born. And yes, I feel that is showing like a patterning of this incarnation. If you want to
Mm-hmm.
look at it, that your soul laid that out for you, like here's a map. But I don't like to ascribe to, oh, I'm this and that, so I'm always going to be this way.
Right.
Because it can be really fatalistic too. Like,
Yeah.
don't let it go into this fatalistic, not saying that you were bringing that up, but
No, no, no.
that's something that's become conscious for me throughout studying it and sort of being in the community and things like that. You're not um you're not tied to or trapped in any way. It's
Yeah.
literally just a map that was given, like of energies that were given to that point. It's a point in time,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
It's
uh
it's not like it's not an identity thing. Don't take it
right.
on as an identity.
Right. Because I think, because as I was looking, because again, I'm not an astrologer, but I'm just looking at trying to mine my birth chart for things, karmic things, like you're talking about Saturn and stuff. Like, okay, I know that there's some
Hmm.
karmic things that I need to adjust in my life. So I started with that, with my birth chart. And as I was going through it, it was like cracking me up. One, it was like showing like, oh, you're really into like occult practices and hidden things. And I was like, yep. Yep. Okay, that makes
Yep.
sense. And then there were like, of course, and it gets to the point where it's telling you like in these situations, you do this. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. And it's more of like looking back about and seeing that pattern of like, okay, yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
here's the area that I might want to, put some more energy around.
Right.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So yeah, I totally agree. Like you don't want to just look at it and say, well, that's just how I am. And I guess that's how my life is. And I guess I'm just going to be shit upon because, my birth chart said that's what's going to happen. Yeah, I totally get that caveat. So I appreciate
Yeah.
it. So we're kind of wrapping up for sure, but I did want to
Mm-hmm.
address because you're a Pisces and I'm a Pisces. And I don't know about you, but for me being a Pisces and the Pisces that I interact with, I'll
Mm-hmm.
just say, one, we're good at a lot of stuff. Like, I'll just put that out there.
Mm-hmm.
We're really good. Like, we'll get into it,
Yeah.
kind of just, pick it up, and we're really great at it. How do you choose?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is my struggle. And I don't know if you've had this struggle, but how do you choose where to put your
Mm-hmm.
focus on?
Oh my God, I know. It's taken a while. I know. And I mean, it gets older, it gets better with age,
Yeah.
definitely. Like just in my starting my 40s, I'm like, oh wow, okay, now I get where I need to put what is best because you have the experience of okay, that didn't work out.
Right.
And it had excuse me, there's so many different factors beyond the sun sign too. I think that's what I've kind of learned. But yeah, as far as there's so many other factors because yeah, your sun sign is just um one element of your chart. And like I kind of already said, I actually have a night chart. So
Mm,
luckily or not luckily, because it's in detriment, my moon is in Capricorn. So that's always helped me to focus on practical, pragmatic matters and do the work essentially. And things like that. But I know it definitely is a struggle to because Pisces is so it's everything. It's the ocean. It's just can be anything, be anyone you want to be, etc. But actually, I feel like what helped me, and I'm not trying to open another can of worms, I just want to mention what actually helped me to function and to put my energy in specific places is human design, honestly,
mhm.
because I don't know if you've cracked the book on, or whatever, cracked that open yet, but learning that, and I've talked with a lot of people who like astrology can be sort of abstract,
Mm,
but
mhm.
human design is much more like this is your energy type and try these things, experiment with using your energy in this way. And that can be really validating and really helpful. But that helped me actually to function and know where and what is right for me in my energy and what isn't, if that
Mm,
makes sense.
totally. Yeah.
Um, so I would say a collection of like experience trying things and they don't work. I mean, that's another way that the universe communicates with you. Like if
Right.
things don't work out or you keep getting doors shut in your face or whatever,
Yeah.
okay, don't go that way.
Yeah.
So probably like talking again, like communicating with reality in your own way, um, and just knowing yourself. And I feel like that's what mysticism and occult practice really is for. Any spiritual practice, it's to know
Mhm.
yourself and to really understand and read your body, read your energy when something is really draining your energy. Don't do that. And if something is just really getting you going, then follow those things. And that does
Mhm.
take time to
Yeah.
learn.
Well, thanks
Maybe
for
you agree.
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, basically all of what you said totally resonates. But again, getting better, we're in our 40s, like, it's a halfway point, hopefully. So, we
Yeah.
gotta
It feels
like,
good. It's like,
oh
oh,
yeah,
okay, now I know.
exactly. Like,
Feel
okay,
better about what I'm doing.
yeah, for sure.
Now
Oh
I
my
can do the
gosh.
things.
Yes. Now I have all the experience. Now it's time to do the things. So speaking of that, can you talk about
Mhm.
your creative businesses that you operate and manage?
Yeah. Right now, so again, it was another kind of experiment, but I started a basically a cult clothing shop. I mean,
Hmm.
which is just print on demand. So it's like t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, and things like that. But I like to blend esotericism and sacred, axioms, especially from Hermeticism, with just everyday clothing. And it's been really great. I started on Etsy, and I'm so grateful. And I attract like the coolest customers too. But people are really appreciative of finding something that is meaningful, or that has meaning
Hmm.
behind it that again isn't just like trying to like still rebellious, but
Yeah.
that isn't like just being rebellious for the sake of it or whatever, but that has a deeper meaning to it
Yeah.
perhaps. And also to kind of like signal, to the others when you're out there, because people will be like, hey, I like
Oh,
your
right.
thing. If there's an Ouroboros or something, they're like, hey.
Yeah.
So that's been really fun. That actually it was funny because that I have a fashion design degree, and that actually brought together, and I was a web developer and different like brand designer and things like that. So it just really brought all of
Hmm.
my past skill sets together, and it's been really really fun. So that's one of my business. I've always got like a few businesses or business ideas going on. So that's one of the ones I'm focused on right now to, you know, kind of grow it and make sure that it finds the people that appreciate those things.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking.
And that was Lucida Mystica is the.
Lucida Mystica, it's
Mhm.
just lucid mystic
Mhm.
with an A on the end of each word. So
Perfect.
lucidamystica.com.
Beautiful. Yes.
Yeah.
And so lucidamystica.com is where folks can find your wares, but is there any other way if somebody
Hmm.
wants to reach out to you, how they can connect with you?
Yeah, I would say just my Instagram, your.sovereign.self is the username that I don't post a lot anymore, but it's just where uh I keep my friends and things like that. So if you want to reach out, you can DM me there.
Cool. So what words of wisdom or, you know, I've also been saying mantra or some phrase that gets you by that you reach to that you'd like to share?
Ah, this is why I started my podcast that was called Liberate Yourself,
Mm,
as in two words, yourself, inner self. Um, know thyself is really everything. I think always comes back to that. The Oracle of Delphi was right. And really my words of wisdom at this point would be, especially when you just get started and you're absorbing so much information, you're taking it all in, you're reading the books and all the podcasts and everything. At a certain point, it's time to put that down and really cultivate your relationship with reality and how you interact with it. Reality, as in the universe, guides, whatever you want to call it, your higher self. Um, because we're each equipped to be able to get information and get wisdom individually in our own way, and it's not going to like the books and the teachers help, I feel, but it helps point us to that,
mhm,
so in the end, that's what I really want to what I've learned, and what I wanted to hammer home is just really learn to trust yourself and not adhere to anyone else's framework completely, but that just knowing that they're all guides and teachers that are there pointing you back to yourself, essentially, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, that's perfect. Well, great words to live by. So thank you so much, Trista, for joining us today. And yeah, just thanks for everything.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Your support means the world to us. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please take a moment to like, comment, and share it with others who might find this content valuable. And of course, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for more enlightening discussions. Your engagement helps us grow, and we appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for being a part of the Casual Temple community.